Hi everyone, this is Professor G. I wanted to do a pretty quick lesson about thesis statements. So likely we've heard about thesis statements or we know a little bit about them. I want to talk about them just so that we are all on the same page about what they are and perhaps equally as important, what they aren't. All right, so a thesis statement is commonly described in a couple of different ways, right? When we talk about a thesis statement, we usually describe it as an argument, all right, or the position that is being defended by the writer. Sometimes we think about a thesis statement as the point behind the paper or what the writer wants to prove. All right, and all of that is some ways of thinking about what a thesis statement is, right? But in general, it's a position, it's an argument. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to give two what I think are useful but also very weird ways of thinking about thesis statements. So one definition of a thesis statement or of an argument is as a statement with which a reasonable person can disagree. So I'm going to say that again just to kind of let the weirdness of that sink in. So a thesis statement or an argument is a statement with which a reasonable person can disagree. So that means that if someone reads your argument, reads your thesis statement, they could take the other side, and it's a reasonable side. It's something that they can back up with evidence, right? So if you can imagine a thesis statement along the lines of the United States needs to come up with stricter gun laws, right? That's an argument. I could back it up. Someone else could take a reasonable position that is on the other side. They can insist on the constitutional right to have a weapon, right? They can think about whether having a gun makes you safer as opposed to in more danger, right? There are ways that you can take the other side of the argument if it is in fact a strong thesis statement. So we can also think about a thesis as an opinion based on evidence. And the key is that it is based on evidence. So I recognize that when you have a position in one of these papers, you are announcing an opinion, right? As long as you can back it up, you are fine. I think that we're professors and students are sort of scared of the word opinion, but just because something is an opinion doesn't mean it doesn't have any factual basis. The goal here in a position paper or in a persuasive essay is to come up with a position with an opinion that you can back up with evidence. So that's basic information about what a thesis is. So I want to talk about what a thesis isn't. I want everyone to be on the lookout for fake arguments. So a fake argument is something, a statement that is meant to trick us, to fool us into thinking that an opinion is being offered, but it isn't. All right, it's a way to protect the writer so that they cannot be wrong, but it makes it seem like they have an argument, right? If you have an argument, that means someone can argue with you, right? Someone can fight with you. Someone can have a different way understanding of the evidence. So if you have a fake argument, that's not the case. All right, so fake argument type number one is the question. Questions are great. They are useful as a way of starting a conversation. But imagine that you were looking at a paper and the thesis statement, the argument was this: how has technology changed the way we interact with each other? That's a really fascinating question. It's not an argument, all right? An argument or a thesis statement isn't a question. That simply sets up the conversation. A thesis is an answer to that question. So if you are writing your paper and you have a thesis statement that is a question, that is fine. What I want you to do is I want you to follow it up with another 1 to 3 sentences answering that question. Now, your answer to that question is going to be your new thesis statement. All right, so fake argument number 2 is the summary. So imagine that you are looking at a paper and the argument is something along the lines of, in his article, John Smith argues that blank. So this argument immediately hands power over to someone else. Your position is your idea, right? Own it, all right? What matters is that you are proving it to the greatest extent that you possibly can. One of my biggest pieces of advice when putting together a position paper or a persuasive essay, do not worry about being 100% correct. You cannot be. It is impossible. If you have an argument, that means that someone can push against you. Right? So you can't be 100% correct. The person arguing with you cannot be 100% correct. All that matters is that you are proving your idea, proving your argument to a reasonable extent. All right, so fake argument number 3. This is the statement of topic argument. Now, this is by far the most common. You can find these everywhere, and they really look like arguments. But they're not. Alright, so here's an example. Imagine looking at a paper, and the argument is, in this paper, I will write about how social media is affecting how we connect with one another. That looks like an argument. It isn't. It does not state the writer's understanding of the idea. All it says is what the paper is the topic that the paper is going to be about. So a very quick test for figuring out if a particular thesis statement is a statement of topic or not. So, and I'll go back to the original example. So in this paper, I will write about social media, how social media is affecting how we connect with each other. So a quick test, create a counter argument. All right, so the counter argument would be something like, in this paper, you will not write about how social media is affecting how we connect with one another. That, given the paper, is absolutely incorrect. It cannot be defended, right? So a statement of topic simply says what the topic is, but a thesis, it states the writer's understanding of the topic, right? Now, these sort of fake thesis statements are everywhere, right? They are very common, and they will ruin a paper. All right, so what you want to do if you are tempted to just have a statement of argument is make sure that you follow it up with your own understanding of that topic based off of the evidence. So those are the 3 main kinds of fake arguments. So if you're concerned about this, if this really worries you, send me a message, send me an email. I am more than happy to talk about it and cover anything that seems sort of tricky. So I want to get away from that presentation and just say that I hope that this was helpful. I know that it's a lot of information, but I think it's important for us to be on the same page when we think about what an argument is and what an argument isn't. So if anything comes up about this, please feel free to let me know.